Hello, and today we're doing an FPL preview for game week number 19. That's right, people, it has arrived, the double game week. It is going to be very juicy indeed, and I'm going to talk you through what my strategy is for this week, what transfers I've made, and many more things. But if you haven't already, smash a like on the video, subscribe for more FPL content on this channel, and let's try and get to 50 subs. I know we can do it. We're just 9 away at this point, so let's keep on pushing. But in today's video, we're going to go through my team, captaincy, and all that stuff. But it is the double game week, and if you don't know what that means, it means a player plays 2 games in 1 week. So, first of all, let's reveal the fact that this week I have played my wildcard. That's right, it had to be done because I've had a lot of injuries recently. Che Adams having the concussion, Vardy's got an injury, you've got McCarthy having COVID, and there's a bit of doubt actually whether the Leeds-Southampton game will go ahead because apparently that game will get called off due to Southampton having to play their FA Cup game against Shrewsbury. And there's just so many things up in the air and a few players that I wanted to get rid of. So the wild card this week made lots of sense, getting loads of double game week players and players that I wanted to keep long term anyway. So let's start off with our lineup and then we'll get into it. To start off with, we have Edouard Mendy in goal. Cracking goalkeeper. I think he's been one of the most impactful signings for Chelsea, especially early on in the season. He was getting so many clean sheets, and you'd say, yes, Chelsea have dropped off recently, but they have played some big teams, and against Fulham, there's 100% a chance of a clean sheet there. And Leicester might be tough, but he can easily get me some save points. So I think he's a good keeper to have long term because, you know, Chelsea will improve in their clean sheets. Now, the defence, I've changed a couple of them, but one of them stays the same, and that is Aaron Cresswell. What an absolute legend. He's done so well for me, getting that lovely assist in Gameweek 17, and he's just got so many points. And he's got a lovely double fixture against Burnley and West Brom, so he's going to be a massive player to have this week. Then we've got the Man City defensive double up, and it just makes so much sense. Number 1, both their games are at home, and number 2, their fixtures from game week 19 onwards are so good. So there's lots of potential for clean sheets, and the double up is, I think, almost essential for the you know, going forward. So I think I've got the best centre-back partnering they've been called. They really have been working well together, and that is Ruben Diaz and John Stones, both attacking threat. We saw John Stones score in the Carabao Cup recently, so he can start getting some more goals, and Diaz, how he's not scored yet for Manchester City is beyond me, but I think he will score very soon. So they're both very good centre-backs to have, can win headers in the box, get set-piece goals, and they're both very good for clean sheets. Facing Crystal Palace and Aston Villa, which aren't amazing, but with Man City, when they're at home, you can always back them to get a shutout. They are the best defensive team in the league. Now we move on to our midfield, and of course all these players have double game weeks, so that basically means we're going to get a 100-pointer, pretty much guaranteed. Now it's not guaranteed, but it's looking likely. Now in midfield, we have a very nice midfield. We've got Thomas Souček, who's got a juicy couple of fixtures against Burnley and West Brom. I mean, that is just delightful. And he's just a man that's been on a lot of people's benches, and he's just been scoring so many goals. So he's a great player to have, Thomas Souček. And then next to him, we have the absolute king, Fernandes. Now, yes, he didn't score against Burnley, but he's still a great player, and he'll be revved up for this game against Liverpool because it's a big title clash. With Manchester United currently top, Liverpool have to go for this, and I think there could be some last-minute penalty drama that Fernandes gets involved in. And then after that, a lovely fixture against Fulham. I mean, that is just delightful. So there's a good chance of big points there at Craven Cottage for Bruno, and he's probably going to be my captain because, you know, he's been so consistent across the season apart from week 18, and, you know, that Fulham game is just so nice. So what you got to remember is Fernandes' best games this season have been away from home, and he's got 2 away fixtures. Yes, you'd argue the Liverpool one is tough, but Liverpool versus Manchester United, any of the superstars can step up there. So the Fulham game as well is looking very nice. Kevin De Bruyne is the next one. basically the three of Fernandes, De Bruyne, and then the next one are basically a premium trio that I just want to keep pretty much the rest of the season if I can avoid it. I don't want to, if I can avoid it, I don't want to sell them out, because unless they get a massive injury or anything like that, they're just so consistent. And De Bruyne, as I mentioned with those centre-back pairing of Diaz and Stones, De Bruyne's fixtures are amazing, and you just know that KDB is going to be at the centre of what Man City do. So yeah, very looking forward to those games against Palace and Villa. And then we've got Mo Salah. Mo Salah, the absolute FPL GOAT. He's just the best for fantasy, and he's so good. He's going to be chasing the Golden Boot this season, so I want to be having him as long as possible. And a game against Manchester United is actually quite a good one for Salah, because, you know, he will be very lethal on the break, and against Burnley you just see points there. So it's a very good couple of fixtures for Salah. And then moving on to our forward line, well, this is an interesting one, but we have got El Matador, and if you don't know what that means, it's the nickname for the bullfighter. It's Edinson Cavani. Now, it's an interesting one, but I probably will go with him, because basically I had him originally Martial, and Martial has just been a bit on and off this season, and he did pull up with what looks like maybe a hamstring against Burnley. So if Martial is fully fit and firing, perhaps I swap him from Cavani. But I just think Cavani is looking like a player who's back to his best, and, you know, away from home as well, Cavani looks more of a threat. And I do think that, you know, in these games against Liverpool and Fulham, Cavani's going to do well. Cavani was brought in from Paris Saint-Germain for these big games against the likes of Liverpool, so he's going to be a big player for them. And yeah, I just got a feeling with Martial possibly injured, Cavani will play more of a role. And the thing is, I'm not even going to sweat about which one's going to play, because number one, Martial might not play because of his injury, but number two, they could even play together like we saw against Burnley. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Cavani. It's a bit of a differential pick, really. Not many people will be looking at it, but I think I really could shoot up the ranks with this one. And then we have Tammy Abraham. And again, there's a bit of risk here because we don't know if he's going to play over Timo Werner. But I just think Timo Werner's been so struggling. So his confidence has been absolutely shot. And whenever Abraham has played, he's very regularly got goals. And I'm not even worried, because if Werner starts and he struggles in the game, Abraham still comes on and gets goals. So Abraham is a very good player to have. And that Fulham game is very tempting. The game against Leicester will be tight, but I still feel if that is decided for Chelsea's favour, it could be a moment of magic from Tammy. So yeah, I think he's an interesting player to also own. And then finally, we've got Michail Antonio. What an absolute legend. Now, it's been a bit of a struggle this season, it's got to be said, for Michail Antonio. He's had to fight injury, but he seems to be fully fit now. He played a lot of the game in the Cup, and just looks like he's back on track now. Obviously, Sebastian Haller going to Ajax, which has basically put all the weight on Antonio. So he's got to deliver, really, and I think he will, because he just is a good player when he's fully fit and firing. And those fixtures, Burnley and West Brom, you can't go without the West Ham triple up. So I've gone with Antonio, Souček and Cresswell, and let's hope for some big points. But let's talk through our bench just quickly, and then we'll get into how I'm thinking for this week. So we've got a backup goalie. Now, obviously, with the wild card, I played my free hit last week. And talking of free hit, in my last FPL preview for Gameweek 18, I have to admit, I trolled you a bit. And if you'd have watched that, you'd have known that the voice was pretty squeaky. It was some great sound effects. But basically, the reason I trolled you like that was because I had to make some changes. And I prefer the team that I set out. So actually, instead of having Martial, I thought Kane was a better option, and I went and captained him for this week. And then instead of having, you know, people like Leno, I had Leno there instead of Darlow, because I just knew the Sheffield win was coming. Things like that, really. But no, on a real, that is the team I've got for the double game week. But the point is, I kind of trolled you and had that squeaky voice. But this week, there's no trolling. Don't worry. This is my legitimate team for game week number 19, I should say. So no sound effects this week. And as I said, the only change I probably will make from this team is if Cavani doesn't play and Martial does. But it's looking like Cavani is going to be all right to play. So yeah, this is a pretty juicy team that I've got going into game week number 19. But yeah, it's an interesting one because unlike free hit last week, where it resets your original team, wildcard is much more interesting because it does mean you got the team long term. And long term, I'm just looking at this season, the unpredictability of it. I mean, I thought about playing the triple captain this week, but it's just too risky. I want to hold it for later in the season, possibly for another double game week, but I just don't think it's a wise decision to do it this early because there's so much uncertainty when the games start to calm down, when hopefully the virus has started to be a bit less of an impact with the vaccine getting rolled out later on in the season. Then I think I'll be more confident to triple captain. But I do think the wildcard this week is a good shout because you can get those double game week players. And long term, I do need a second goalie to be starting because I've seen this season that a lot of goalies can get postponements and can get COVID, it can get injuries. So it's a nice reassurance that if my starting goalie Mendy didn't play, we've got Sanchez to come in. And you know, Brighton haven't been the best defensive team in the world, but you can always say with Sanchez, he's been a pretty better form compared to Ryan. And basically Potter has said Ryan can pretty much get out that door and leave. They seem to have had a bit of a fallout, but Sanchez is looking all right. He's looking all right. He's making some saves and getting some points. So I think he's a good player to have as a second goalie. And then we've got Emil Smith-Rowe on the bench if we need it. Now, obviously, it's not ideal to not have a whole squad of double game week players, but to be honest, I wouldn't want to have double game week players on my bench because if I missed out on some big points, it would be really, really annoying. And also, I want to be saving bench boosts to later on in the season. That's another big chip that's going to be very, very useful come the end of the season. So there's no need to waste it now. And I think if you're going to have some players in your bench, you probably want to have single game week players, but that you got to have some decent players. Now, Emil Smith-Rowe is more than a decent player. He's been in very, very good form. Arsenal seems to have their mojo back, and he actually scored in this game in the FA Cup against Newcastle. But, you know, this is the league, and obviously I'm going to prioritise double game week players this week. But if one of my double game week players doesn't play, I think Smith-Rowe is a perfect sub to come in and do the bits. Then we've got Pablo Mari. Now, defensively, there's not many options, I'll admit, at 4.4 million, but I think Mari's a good player. Arsenal, as I said, have been growing in confidence, and defensively, as well as going forward, they've actually done quite well. And I think Mari is playing regularly at the last few games, and he's just a good option to have for the bench, I think, most weeks. Obviously, I might play him depending on the fixture, but I just have to play Cresswell this week with that double game week. And finally, we have Kilman. Now, Max Kilman, the reason he's my third sub is that I'm not 100% sure in any given week that he's going to play, but if he does play, he's a good player to come on if all things are lost and other players aren't playing. So, yeah, he's a good bench player, again, as I said, with Mari. But he's got a nice fixture, to be fair, this week against West Brom. But it is only one game, so I'm much more comfortable with having him third sub. But he might be a useful player going forward, especially with Wolves' fixtures starting to turn. And hopefully we can see Kilman get a few more opportunities, but as I said, not a priority because he will be bench fodder. So those are my transfers for the week. Now, one thing that's interesting is that I've not got here any Leeds players or Southampton players, and the reason for that is there's, as I said, talk about that FA Cup game getting it postponed, which would mean that the Leeds would only have one game week fixture against Brighton, and Southampton would only have that fixture against Leicester City. So that's the reason behind that. But also in terms of postponements, it's looking very likely that Aston Villa against Everton is not going to go ahead. It's a shame, really, because that would have been a nice fixture to own Grealish. And hence why I have got rid of Grealish in this wildcard, because he did have 2 game week fixtures, but with Aston Villa having the COVID outbreak, I'm just not sure they're going to have games. And I don't think that Everton game's going to go ahead. So maybe by the time that Aston Villa face Man City, their situation will be sorted out, but I wouldn't have wanted to own Grealish for that game anyway, so that's fine. And we've just gone without those Everton or Aston Villa players for that first game for Aston Villa. So yeah, that's basically what my thinking was behind that. I think in the Leicester Southampton game, that could be an interesting one. I was thinking about Jamie Vardy, I was thinking about Danny Ings, but I don't need either of them because Abraham and Cavani have arguably got better fixtures against Fulham, and with Leicester, Jamie Vardy and Maddison are both out injured, so I don't really want to want to take a punt on it, they might play, but there's too much risk involved. And if I went with Danny Ings, of course, then I would only have one game because I think the Leeds game won't happen. So, yeah, it was a tempting one, but I just prefer the 3-4s I've got in front of you there. So, and obviously the Liverpool-Man United game is going to be a massive, massive game for the season and also for my fantasy team because we have 3 players from that game. But I am very, very confident in Cavani. I'm certainly confident in Bruno, hence why he's probably going to be captain. I mean, it might change. It might be De Bruyne. Like I was earlier on in the season, I was going to probably do a triple captain De Bruyne game week 19, but as I said, it's just too risky with this current climate of the season. How unpredictable it is to do triple captain this early. So it's probably going to be a captaincy battle this week between Fernandes, Salah and KDB. So, I mean, I could even captain Antonio, but I just don't 100% know he's going to play 90 minutes. So I'm just putting him in there as a punt. Do I really want to captain him? Nah, too risky. So it's between those 3, Fernandes, De Bruyne, Salah. At the minute, it's on Fernandes, but I might change it to either KDB or Salah. And vice-captain will be either Fernandes, KDB or Salah. So as it is, Fernandes is taking the armband, but that Liverpool game is the sort of match you really can't miss as a fan of the Premier League. It's going to be so big, and big players step up in the big occasions. But obviously there is always hype about this fixture, and we've seen in previous seasons that it has ended 0-0. So it'd be a shame to obviously end 0-0 again, but I just don't see it this season. I think the way that there's been goals flowing, I just feel both teams will be desperate to get goals in this game. So they won't be, conservative like Manchester United would have been in previous seasons when they were in a different position, battling for top 4. They're now battling for the league. So, I mean, obviously with Man United, they're top, but it's a question of how long can they keep it going. We'll have to find out. But the point is, it's going to be a very interesting one for the clash on Merseyside. And, with the double game week, you've always got to also consider some single game week players like Son, Kane. They've still got a very nice fixture against Sheffield United, but I just thought I'd prefer to have a player that has 2 fixtures. And I just don't know with Spurs. They're a good player, they're a good team, and they score goals. But are they going to keep it up? We just don't know. So maybe I'll get Son or Kane, but later down the line. But I just don't think I need to do it right now with those players at the team at the minute. My team is looking good. So, anyway, just mentioning that Sheffield United game, it seems that Sheffield United-Tottenham has actually been a bit of a kryptonite for Spurs. They lost their 3-1 last season and also held to a draw in the game at home. So they might even not score many points there. So obviously the Wolves game is going to be an interesting one. That's why I've got Kilman, because there could be a clean sheet there. But Fulham game obviously is a West London derby, so I'm hoping that Abraham can be revved up for that. And Arsenal against Newcastle, hence why we've got Smith Rowe. But Lacazette is a player I just wasn't too keen on getting, and I just prefer the Manchester United forward this week. Leeds taking on Brighton. Of course, that'll be interesting with Ben White facing his former team. And Man City Palace, I mean, surely Palace can't shock the citizens again. They've sometimes got them to draws and wins, but I think Man City are going to be really revving it up this next few games. They're going to be trying to catch up with Liverpool. And then the West Ham-Burnley game, there's often goals in that, so I'm hoping that will be the case for Mikel Antonio. So I'm very happy with this double game week team. As I said, it might change between Cavani and Martial, but other than that, I don't think there'll be too much movement. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, I can't report how I did in game week 18 because it's mid-game week, but hopefully I can get a massive green arrow in game week 19 and just, do as best as I can, really. Fernandes is an absolute must-have, I think, this week. I fancy lots of points for him in that double game week, and I thought about Maddison because he does pick up a lot of goals and assists, but he looks like he might have been injured out, and I think the Man City double up is looking really, really good long term. So, yeah, that is my FPL preview for game week number 19. I hope you have enjoyed. Smash a like on the video for more content, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.